Great. Thank you, Chelsea, and good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, just wanted to make sure that everyone can hear us loud and clear. So if you could just respond in the chat pod, let us know if you can hear us. That would be great. Give you a second to type there. So excellent. Very good. So thank you again. This is John Barr with the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, work in our Office of Employment and Training. I'm here today with Jennifer Foyle to provide a webinar on the Illinois Apprenticeship Plus Youth Program. And this information is going to review the grant guidelines for this funding opportunity. We're also going to review several of the new requirements under the Uniform Administrative Guidelines and also the State of Illinois' Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. We recognize that this presentation is very similar to others that we have provided in the not-too-distant past. We did an application seminar for the adult program not too long ago. A lot of the same information regarding the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act requirements will be covered at the end of the presentation, but certainly the information regarding the youth opportunity and those specific requirements will be covered in detail. Quick disclaimer before we start. This presentation is for your information, and it should not supersede the terms of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, a grant agreement, or other award documents. So we are recording this, so if folks are not able to attend, we will post this recording, as Chelsea had mentioned, and we'll make that available for viewing in the future. So the presentation is broken out into two parts. Part one will focus on the requirements of the Apprenticeship Plus Youth Program, and part two will focus on the actual grant application and will highlight some of the award documents. Would want to point out that we are working under some new procedures under the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, and we're continuing to develop these and appreciate your feedback and patience as we work through some of the technical issues in some of our new documents and procedures. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jennifer Foyle with the Northern Illinois Center for Governmental Studies, who's going to provide program management support for the Illinois Apprenticeship Plus program, and we'll go through some of the key highlights of this youth opportunity.
Thank you, John. Can you all hear me? I'm assuming you can. Could you go to the next slide, John? Or Chelsea? Thank you. So, my name is Jennifer Foyle, as John said, and I work for Northern Illinois University Center for Governmental Studies. I support both the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board's Apprenticeship Committee, as well as the Governor's Cabinet on Children and Youth Apprenticeship Plus project. And so this NOFO is a direct result or outcome of the Governor's Cabinet on Children and Youth. And so we have, so that's why we're focusing on youth in this particular NOFO, as opposed to the adult apprenticeship that we presented a couple of weeks ago, and that's online as well. So the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board's Apprenticeship Committee is the advisory board or the advisory group for all apprenticeship for Illinois, of how do we want apprenticeship to look like in the state of Illinois. Now we have, we started with, of course, we have registered apprenticeship. It's DOL's definition of registered apprenticeship that is like the gold standard. So it's registered with DOL. It has 5 characteristics of apprenticeship, which are business involvement, structured on-the-job training, related instruction, rewards for skill gains, and industry-recognized credentials. So we started with that, looking at what the gold standard is, but then we're like, what else do we want for Illinois? So the Apprenticeship Committee did research on other states, did research on other models in other countries, and just discussion and interviews from different industries and businesses, and then what's working and what's not working. We came up with this Illinois Apprenticeship Plus model that we're calling. And so this is, we're saying it's a more inclusive model. So of course we have registered apprenticeship, which is going to stand out among all the apprenticeship. But then we also wanted to include pre-apprenticeship, youth apprenticeship, and then what we're calling right now is non-registered apprenticeship, which is of industry-recognized credential programs. Now, of course, this is evolving. The Apprenticeship Committee was created last year. It's still, it takes things into account and wants to make it better, so we're still growing, and so that's why these are pilot programs that we're going to fund this time. So this particular NOFO is focusing on pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship. Now, there is a definition. DOL recognizes a definition for pre-apprenticeship, although they don't actually track the pre-apprenticeship like registered apprenticeship, but pre-apprenticeships are those that are feeding registered apprenticeship. They have a direct relationship with registered apprenticeships. They're getting applicants ready to actually enter registered apprenticeship. Those that are not completely ready, that's what pre-apprenticeship is doing for them. They're getting them ready for that. And then youth apprenticeship is looking at youth as a whole and exposing them perhaps on a broader spectrum of an industry. There's a lot of creativity allowed in this. We have a lot of good examples within the state, or several good examples within the state of youth apprenticeship happening. But right now we're focusing on youth apprenticeship that could be anywhere from 16 to 24 years old, and is actually a little bit more in-depth than pre-apprenticeship because it lasts longer, but then it maybe has a broader focus rather than just one registered apprenticeship program. It's looking at an industry as a whole. So, but looking at this model, what our goal is to get everyone on some kind of career pathway. And we want to use what DOL has already put forth as in somehow addressing those 5 characteristics: the business involvement, the structured on-the-job training, the related instruction, reward for skill gains, and industry-recognized credentials. We want to have some kind of foundation where we're at least addressing those so that we're ensuring there's some kind of quality to the apprenticeship program. Also, when we're interviewing and we're looking at the different models around other states and other countries, we saw different principles that kind of rose to the top. And you see that to the left. It's in orange to the left of the pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. Some of the principles that came out is employer engagement. We need better employer engagement. Of course, there is no apprenticeship without employers' involvement. We want to build on what's working because we do have some great examples within the state. We want access and equity, as in we want it open, inclusive for everyone. Also, and DOL is really pushing this as well, but innovation and flexibility, that apprenticeship is no longer just construction and trades and manufacturing. It's also can be in other industries such as IT, healthcare, TDL, such as transportation, distribution, and logistics. We have some people that are interested in creating finance ones as well. Some have already created finance ones. And then also accountability. We want to ensure that those who go in are coming out of programs on a career pathway, and so that there is accountability to all of the programs. But all of this is not possible without some kind of infrastructure, so we need that employer engagement. Economic development, education, and workforce policies must support it. We need marketing and promotion. Technical assistance, that's what we're here to help, as well as others. We've engaged some others to help with technical assistance. And then we've got to figure out how to gather data and do performance reporting so we know that we can build on what's working. And so that's pretty much our model in a nutshell that we've created at this point. Could we go to the next slide, John? There we go. So, go one more up. There we go. Up to pre-apprenticeship. There. Okay, so this is what we're looking at for pre-apprenticeship. Now, like I said, there is a definition by DOL, TEGL 13-12, And basically what it says is that these apprenticeships pre-apprenticeships are getting candidates skills to a higher level. There's some kind of memorandum of understanding or something to one or more registered apprenticeship programs. For us, we also want to ensure that we're looking at the different 5 characteristics in some way. So if you see to the left in the blue, those are the 5 characteristics that registered apprenticeship must have, and these are what we're showing how pre-apprenticeship addresses it. So business involvement, well, with pre-apprenticeship, it's normally a prior to hire type model. And so typically it's pre-employment and it's upfront classroom instruction. You're not hired usually, and you're getting your skills up, which leads to the related instructions. I'm just going to plop down to related instruction. That classroom instruction is usually, can be literacy, can be math, it could be English language skills, and then of course the work readiness skills, the technical skills that they need as well. Structured on the job training, since pre-apprenticeship is really concentrated in classroom experiences, it doesn't mean it doesn't have any kind of on-the-job training. It may have, it depends on the program that's created. It may have some job shadowing, could have some work setting visits, and then also it could have the lab portion that it's created like a work setting that they're able to practice their skills on. We went through the related instruction piece. There'll be some kind of structured related instruction, and then reward for skill gains. Well, we want the completers to be able to transition straight into either a registered apprenticeship or into a career-oriented job. So we're not wanting our participants to come out of this with just a job. Oh, wow, they got a job. No, we want them to be on some kind of career path. And so that's where industry-recognized credentials come in. The pre-apprentices should be earning, if it's available in those particular industries, should be earning industry-recognized credentials that they can, such as NIMS or OSHA. Next slide, please. Now, with the youth apprenticeship framework, business involvement, we're given a lot of creative leeway here. It could be where they are hired by a business for as little as 1 hour to 30 hours per week. But they could be unpaid job shadowing to part-time paid employment. So we would like for there to be hiring the youth apprentices. However, as long as there is some kind of structured program in place that gives them some kind of work experience, that could be considered as well. When they are hired and they are provided a salary, of course they're going to earn at least minimum wage or higher. Structured on-the-job training. Well, this is a work-based learning model, and it should be structured so that they know that what they're going to be learning on the job with a mentor, or in the past we've always called, especially with constructions and trades, it's journeyman, but it may have a mentor that's helping them on the job while they're learning the different competencies that they should be learning within that industry. So that should be documented, what they will be learning on the job. Related instruction. Now this could be back at the classroom, in a school or a conference room, or at a community college, or some kind of other provider, some kind of training provider. But there is a related classroom instruction, so you're getting the theory along with the actual on the job training with on-hands learning. Rewards for skill gains. Depending on the agreement with the participating employers, the students may receive wage increases as skills are gained. It's got to be spelled out how that will be done, and it's different for every particular program. And again, industry-recognized credentials. This is really what we're pushing, is that they're earning credentials as they're going along. Next slide, please. So the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act defines career pathway as a combination of rigorous and high-quality education training and other services that, and then we have a huge list here, aligns with skill needs of industries. prepares individuals to be successful, includes counseling to support an individual, includes education offered concurrently with in the same context as workforce preparation activities, organizes education, training, and other services to meet particular needs of the individual, and enables an individual to attain a secondary school diploma or its recognized equivalent, at least one recognized post-secondary credential, and helps an individual enter or advance within a specific occupation. So really what we are emphasizing here is not jobs. We're emphasizing career pathways of what apprenticeship is able to do for the youth in this particular NOFO. And this is spelled out in WIOA. So these program goals for this particular NOFO, because it is coming out of the Children's Cabinet, the Governor's Cabinet on Children and Youth, is to increase the number of youth earning industry-recognized credentials and post-secondary certificates in high-growth, high-demand occupations. This particular NOFO is going to support the development of at least 10 new apprenticeship pilots in 3 regions. So right now we are focusing on 3 regions, but that doesn't mean that we will not be focusing on the rest of the state at other times. And then the last program goal is to develop apprenticeship pilot programs that serve disadvantaged youth. And there's the list of them: youth with disabilities, teen parents, youth transitioning from juvenile justice system, those that are aging out of the child and family services systems, or youth with evidence-based risk factors. And we're looking at ages 16 to 24. This NOFO will fund projects that, like I said, projects that are focused on pre-apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship with industry-recognized credentialing. WIOA funds are being used for this, so it has a variety of ways to help the job seekers and workers prepare and enter the apprenticeship program. So these programs can support on-the-job training component of the training. Apprenticeship programs, the WIOA funds can also pay for the cost-related classroom instruction, which includes tuition, books, supplies, fees, uniforms, tools, and other required items. I believe, yes, targeted communities. Here's the initial target we're looking at, the whole southern region. And the southern region includes, I'm starting from south to north, the southern region includes the Mount Vernon, Marion area. Those are the 2 big areas, but we're looking at the entire southern region. That north central region is the Peoria, Bloomington, Normal area. And then in the northeast region, what we're actually focusing on there is the western and southern parts of Cook County. And then we've listed below the different townships that are included in this. So we're trying to get youth in those particular areas that we're focusing on. Again, like I said, we're looking at youth that have multiple barriers to employment. So it could be anywhere from low income, ex-offenders, homeless, long-term unemployed, eligible migrant, even single parents, single pregnant women. So again, this particular focus is for youth between the ages of 16 and 24 who have evidence-based barriers to entering certain employment and getting on a career pathway. We are focusing this on 5 different industries at the moment: healthcare, manufacturing, IT, construction trades, and then TDL, transportation, distribution, and logistics. However, we've started business industry roundtables where we're trying to get businesses interested in these particular, in hiring this particular demographic. And we had some people show up from banks already. So this is exciting that we're going into different industries than what the normal idea of apprenticeship is. So you must work with your local workforce areas to create a viable approach for complying with WIOA client eligibility, reporting, and performance requirements. You must have the negotiated performance measures unique to each local area, has their own performance measures, so that's why you need to work with your local workforce area to figure that out. The WIOA performance measures and targets for the grant will be determined at the state level, though. So if you go to the next slide, when I say that you've got to work with them and you don't know how to work with them or you haven't worked with them before, go to this particular website, that www.illinoisworknet.com and DC, and you can go that's the best place to start, to find your local workforce area and to contact them and to get started on making sure that you're meeting the needs in that particular area. Also, for this particular application, we'll want you to send it in to Patrick Campbell, and there's the address, or his, the paper, I'm sorry. The application is on Illinois WorkNet and all of the supplemental guides. Also, if you have any questions and you send them to Patrick Campbell at his email address, we will answer all of the questions and post them on there for you to go and see. You can access anybody who's asked a question, it will go on there so everybody can see the answer for it. And when you submit your application, we ask that you have an executive summary, you have your technical proposal, so you can tell us you're documenting the need, you're putting the specific project requirements and considerations in there, you have your project plan, you have resumes also, any memorandums of understandings with your local workforce areas, with other partners if you're partnering with other training providers or with schools or with businesses, and then also a budget proposal. Again, if you can access the NOFO with Notice of Funding Opportunity online, or we can send you a paper copy if you need. But also, please, any kind of question that you have, go to that website at illinoisworknet.com/youthnofo, and those questions will be answered there. We're going to post them on there so everyone can see the answers. You've got to demonstrate that you meet all the requirements in the NOFO as described. So please ensure that when you submit your application, you're showing that you have capacity to actually do what you say you can do. You've documented the need. You've shown how your particular program will have quality and integration, and then you're showing the cost effectiveness or perhaps the return on investment. And then this is how we're evaluating, the percentage in which we're evaluating the particular applications that are sent in. Is this you, John? Do you talk about this part?
Yes, I can go. And actually, I think this is probably a really good place to take a pause here for some questions. And actually, before we do that, I would just suggest maybe that we go through part of the application here that maybe spend a couple more minutes around some of the components of the technical proposal. Right. So your technical proposal is basically your narrative for the program. Tells us, what you're going to do. It's on page 9 of the application, and so we're calling these are notices of funding opportunity, right? So in the past we used to call them RFAs or grant applications. So as you put together your grant application, page 9 of our NOFO outlines what we are looking for, and I'm going to try to share my screen here, and hopefully you are seeing. Let's see, Chelsea, if I'm doing this wrong here. Okay, can you see page 9 of the NOFO?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So this is where, as Jennifer mentioned, we have the technical components and just kind of goes through the basics, right? So outlines, tell us background information about your organization. Tell us about the population and the community that you're going to serve under the documentation of need. Tell us how you're connected to the project. How are you going to recruit the youth to the project, right? Outline, what are the targeted industries? What are the training components? What are the, kind of the classroom training components? What are the business, the hands-on business components of the program? Provide us with a project plan to outline all of the specific, who's doing what, when, where, and how, and give us a timeline of how you're going to administer the project. And then I would also, as we kind of scroll through here, Jennifer mentioned the applicant review information, and you can see that there is a direct correlation here between the components of the technical proposal to the evaluation criteria here. So as we mentioned, the applicant capacity, documentation of need, quality of the project, and the cost effectiveness. So hopefully stop sharing my screen here and switch back
and while
to
you're moving to something else, I wanted to mention also, John, that that we brought on the Young Invincibles, a nonprofit organization that's whole focus is millennials, and they're helping us to better create, to help support the whole aspect, since we're focusing on youth 16 to 24. They're going to give us technical assistance and give businesses as well as any training providers technical assistance as needed for getting the youth, helping with recruitment if needed, or with how to work with youth and different things of that nature. But just to put that out there, that we've got an incredible national organization that's going to help with this project. They're called the Young Invincibles.
Well, that's great, and that's a great resource, and I would definitely encourage everyone to check out the application website at illinoisworknet.com/youth-NOFO, and I think Chelsea has typed that in into the chat pod there. This would be a great time, as I mentioned, for kind of program-specific questions, eligibility, program design, any of those questions. And Chelsea, maybe if you can unmute the phones, that would be great. Let's see, we've got one question in the chat pod here. What is the plan for funding the projects? 12 to 18 months? Yes, that is. We do have flexibility to go up to 24 months in some cases. However, generally speaking, it's expected the projects should be 12 to 18 months. Questions: May a faith-based organization serve as a partner? The answer is yes, but you have to have all of the required components, and from a I guess from a just an accountability standpoint, you have to make sure that you are partnering with a local workforce area or an experienced provider that has the ability to make the proper assessments and tracks and records the youth that are participating in the program, because we have to report all of that information up to the U.S. Department of Labor, because those are the funding, or that is the funding source that we're using for this grant. Let's see, another question. Can you be from another Cook County township? At this point, we're only targeting the townships that were indicated in the NOFO. So the western and southern Cook County townships. We anticipate that there will be additional funding available in the future. I don't have a specific timeline on that, but this opportunity is limited to the regions identified in the NOFO. Total grant allotment. We anticipate between $3 to $5 million being available. Total funding will depend on the quality of the projects, and as the kind of the goal slide indicated, we do anticipate, or it's our goal is to identify 10 projects in the 3 areas identified. Let's see. When is the grant due? The grant is due, and we will cover some of these slides at the end of the presentation. But to give you a preview, April 17th, 5 p.m. Okay.
And John, did we say that pilots can be funded up to $350,000?
Yes, that is the although I mean that is the general guideline. We do have flexibility. With there it is not a locked-in cap, but generally speaking, projects should be between $250,000 to $350,000. That should be about the range that we're looking at.
And and I've said it many times that it's the ages of 16 to 24 that we're looking at, and we're looking at 2 to 3 pilots per region, those regions that we had said, and anywhere from 10 to 15 youth per pilot.
Yep. So question, after the 24 months, will there be contracts that continue the program? That is not it's not a guarantee. We would look or would advise you that you should include a sustainability component. We recognize that this is putting together an innovative project can be a challenge, and you may have a startup period, and there may be a period where you're working directly with the youth, and that's why it would be important to partner with other folks who can if the grant is done, you can hand off the continued case management of the program, and certainly as we talk about some of the budget in some of the next sets of slides, that's one of the things that we're going to encourage you to do is leverage current programs and other initiatives that are currently available. Okay, some other folks are typing here. We'll be able to contact for technical support as we complete the application. Yes, and the answer is yes. So one of the things, the next portion of the presentation is going to go into a lot of the, I guess, the technical submission requirements. It's a lot of the it's the red tape section, right? And the intent is not to use these forms or procedures to disqualify any application. We're looking for good projects, good good proposals, and so we certainly will help you. We will not write your proposal, absolutely not, but we want to provide you with the assistance to submit the full application package. And again, as I said at the outset, we do have a number of new forms and processes that we're working through as well, and so we will provide you with technical assistance. any substantive questions as it relates to your application, or that might give one organization an advantage over another in the scoring, we will post those questions in a Q&A on the web, on the program website, so everybody has the benefit of seeing that information. So I would encourage you to definitely check back there. Can we partner with a youth employment program, or must they provide apprenticeship-related services? Jennifer, what do you think about that one?
I'm not sure. Can we put that on the Q&A?
Yeah.
I'll make a note of this.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, Layla.
All right. Excellent. All right. So I think that that was a great round of initial questions. We will have time at the end for other questions as well. But I think it's a good point to move forward with the second portion of the presentation today, which will, as I mentioned, cover a lot of the nuts and bolts about submitting an application. I would point out that this content is the same as other presentations that we've provided as part of rolling out information around the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. We're going to go through some of the technical things that all grantees need to do, not only for Department of Commerce grants, but also for other grants, throughout the state. Should tell you a little background. The state passed the law, the Grant Accountability Transparency Act, that basically the intent is to standardize the grant processes across all state agencies, standardize the application process, the grant awarding process, and the grant monitoring process, grant accountability, right? So this is one of the first years that the agencies have implemented the law, and so many of of you on the call have had state grants before, and so there will be changes in our applications. But a lot of those, a lot of the content that you'll have to provide is very similar to what you have in the past, but it may be in a different format. Again, so we're standardized across agency lines. So I will, just to be respectful of all of your time, if you have participated in a previous webinar or presentation that covers this content, I won't be offended at all if you drop off or if you multitask. But I will be going through very detailed information about what is required, and as mentioned in the chat pod, we certainly are available if you have technical assistance needs as you work through the process. So the first piece that all grantees need to do is work through our registration and pre-award process. The state requires that all grantees now have to be registered through a centralized database. It is a registration form, so if you go to www.illinois, let me make sure that I have let me get I'm skipping, but I'll come back, don't worry. It is grants.illinois.gov to go through this registration process. And so from this link, you'll go through this registration process where you will provide information about your organization. It's important to note that this centralized registration system asks for your federal taxpayer ID number or your FEIN and your Dun and Bradstreet number. Those are two critical pieces of information that kind of drive the registration of your entity. And so based on that, you go through a process that notifies the agencies that or verifies your background and your entity's information. We do a cross-check to the federal SAM's accounting systems, and we also do a cross-check to the Dun & Bradstreet to, again, verify the information, verify that you are an entity that we can track from a financial management situation. Grantee pre-qualification includes, as I mentioned, verification of also to verify that you are not excluded. You're not on the federal excluded parties list. Again, we're using federal funds, so we have to verify that you are not on a debarred list. We also verify that you're in good standing with the Illinois Secretary of State. If there's no issues, the system will generate a qualified status. If there are issues, we will notify you with the information and how to address the situation. And again, if you need assistance, you can contact us, and we can try to help you out there. We can help with all the issues except for individuals who are on the excluded list. If you're on the excluded list, there isn't anything that we can do there. Once you are registered, and once you negotiate with us for a grant, we will generate a risk assessment. So it basically looks at it's an automated system that looks at your entity and assigns risk, right? So this process, again, is to register you for grants, not only with Commerce, but also potentially with other organizations, other state agencies, right? And so, based on your history, based on your size, and other factors, it will, give you a risk profile based on a set of questions that your fiscal officers will walk through or should walk through. Another, so all this, as I mentioned, is accessed through grants.illinois.gov. You can go through this pre-award process. Also, within this system, there is a process of identifying your organization's indirect cost rate, or to make a selection. Now, indirect cost, this webinar won't go into a lot of detail on that. There's actually some separate webinar resources to go through that in detail, and if you have specific questions, definitely follow up with me on those. But basically, this centralized system is letting organizations select what indirect cost rate they will or methodology that they'll use to charge grants. The state has worked with Crow Horwath to develop an automated system to select an option here, and number one, you can use your federally approved indirect cost rate if you have one working with the federal government. Number two, you can negotiate a rate with the state of Illinois, and going through that process of having it reviewed by Crowe-Horwath. Number three, you can use the federal 10% de minimis rate, and that rate is based on 10% of the modified total direct costs. You can use a restricted rate, which isn't used very often, or you could elect not to be reimbursed for indirect costs. So again, there's the grant. The intent of the program is to provide you with the resources to, to develop and administer an innovative program, right? The indirect is covering all of your overhead costs that you can't directly attribute to the function of this grant. Under the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act and under new federal guidelines, the state has to do a better job, or the state has made it a policy decision to standardize how we are paying for these indirect costs. And so part of GATA is to adopt these federal guidelines around indirect costs, and that is something that will be required for this grant. And as we get into the grant negotiation phase, something we certainly will work with grantees to ensure that budgets are compliant with the uniform guidance and the state GATA requirements. So again, the point is not to be scared off by this, but know that it's a new or relatively new requirement, and something that we do want to alert you to at the outset, and we will work with you as you develop your budgets. So along the same lines, right? So you've your organization, you've registered through grants.illinois.gov. You've done your initial your pre-qualification, your financial person did their, they answered all of their survey questions, got a risk assessment, right? And now your organization has to select, how are they going to get their indirect paid for, right? And it's important to note that when your organization goes through this system, that it should be applied, the decisions you make here should be applied to all of your grants in the state. And so you can't apply, well, I'm gonna use my negotiated rate with this project, but then I'm going to use the 10% de minimis rate on another project. Once you make a selection in the centralized indirect cost system, you have to use that selection consistently across all grants. Again, something that we will work with you if you get to that point in the competitive review process. So these slides go into more detail. If your organization is going to receive a grant, you'll go to this Crowe-Horwath system. I would point out that there are specific webinars that have been archived that walk through the step-by-step process. This is where you're making that selection. If your organization has a federally negotiated rate, you provide that information here. If you choose to elect the 10% de minimis, you also make that election in the system. And so this is just a quick screenshot of where you can go to get access to the system. And as I mentioned, there's FAQs, training modules, forms, and templates. We also have a bunch of information on Illinois WorkNet. So it's www.illinoisworknet.com/GATA. That has some more detailed information that is more specific to using the federal Department of Labor funds as it relates to some of the new GATA requirements. So that's step one. That's kind of the registration process. I do want to point out that one of the good things with GATA is that it is standardizing procedures, and it is making funding opportunities, should make funding opportunities more open and transparent. One of the features of that grants.illinois.gov website is that there is a listing of open grant applications. So, and that's across all agencies. So that's something that as we work through this new NOFO process, that should be an advantage for you in the grant community. So I want to take a quick pause here and see if there are any questions around the registration process. Let's see. There's a. Can we send a paper breakdown? I would, Mark. I would probably advise you to take a look at that worknet.com/GATA website, and there are a number of resources there. And if you have additional questions, you can contact me directly, and we can work through any additional questions. Okay, a couple folks are typing here. We'll wait for that. Okay, that's a good question. So if we are currently registered, assuming in the state system for 2016, 2017, do we need to re-register? My understanding is that once you register, there is a process of updating your information, and that is automated. So you don't need to register it for every separate grant opportunity that you're applying for. But my understanding, there is an annual review and updating process that the state GATA and Office of Management and Budget and the Crow-Horwath will look at as part of your overall registration process. Okay, so I think some other folks are typing, and while they're typing, I'm going to try to switch here. Chelsea, I'm going to try to share my screen here, and hopefully you are now seeing the uniform application for state grant assistance. Can you confirm that?
Yep, we're seeing that.
Great, excellent. So many of you who have previously submitted a grant application to the Department of Commerce will find this document very familiar. It is kind of our boilerplate form, right? That asks for information about your organization. This is tells a little bit about the application. It includes the application due date. It includes what is required to be submitted, which includes this signed application, the executive summary, technical proposal, resumes, partnership agreements, and the budget proposal. Asks for the legal name of your entity and all the FEAN and the DUNS number. Asks for the contact information for program measures. It also asks for the contact information for your business or your administrative or your fiscal office, so we can contact you again, some of these other technical details. We ask for information about the areas that are going to be served, and then we ask for some estimates about your entities, about your fiscal year and the amount of grant funding. Most importantly, this document serves as kind of certification that the authorized signatures of your organization are aware that you're submitting a grant opportunity or a proposal to the department, and that the information within the application is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge. So, Chelsea, if you can switch back here, or if I can do that. Oops. I think I'm stuck. Here we go. Thank you. Okay, Chelsea, I'm not seeing the screen here again. I may have to...
Down at the bottom, do you have the little Adobe Connect icon? Did you click on that?
Do not. Let's see here.
I'm seeing you're still in here as a host, so you might just need to click the icon to get back into the meeting, because I stopped your screen share.
Okay, I may just have to get out and get back in. Okay, so I guess while we're waiting, any other questions? Chelsea, if you could relay if there's any questions while I'm...
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read the shorter one while we're waiting for you to jump back in. Someone asked, in essence, a nonprofit startup with seasoned professionals with a track record of success. I guess that's not a question, but it's a statement. Is there anything in regards to that?
She had a longer one.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry. Let me read her whole question. I have one organization with whom I have worked on programs for years. However, I have a new initiative that meets these grant objectives and is currently being registered with the state. Would we be eligible? Our team of professionals and partnerships would meet the capacity requirement.
I think the answer is yes, as long as you have the required. I think I mentioned before, as long as you have that connection with an organization that is able to ensure the tracking and reporting of the youth participants. So we know that we're looking, I think, for a broad group of stakeholders to put a project together, right? And so when you talk about the partnership, right, that we know that there could be training partners, there could be business partners, there could be nonprofit organizations that partner to work to get, to recruit youth. The notice of funding opportunity or the application is pretty broad in what we will allow. But one of the keys is that you have to be able to ensure that those participants, are eligible and that the activities are reported, back to our federal funding source. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not. All right, I think I'm back in, so thank you for your patience. And actually, as it relates, I should point out that the information that I'm describing now about the registration and going through and registering your entity and going through the risk assessments and the indirect costs. This is required only of the organization that is going to be applying for the grant. So if you are developing a proposal that has multiple partners that I just talked about, right? So maybe you have 5 different partners that are working on a project. The only one that is required to go through all of this pre-registration process is the entity that is going to apply for the grant, and will be held to all of the terms and conditions of the funding. So the other 4 partners would not need to go through this registration process. All right, so I just went through kind of the key elements of the uniform grant application. It's pretty straightforward, and the key there is to make sure that that your authorized signature signs that when you submit. I want to move now into going through the uniform budget template, and this is an area where we have significant new requirements as far as providing detail around your proposed budget. Right? This is a new template for the department, and we're working. This is an area again that we are working through, and we'll provide you with technical assistance as we go through. But I want to highlight some of the key elements of a budget, regardless of the format that we ask for. First is your budget needs to be allowable, and these are guidelines that come right out of the federal regs. Factors of allowability, they have to be necessary and reasonable, right? They have to be consistent with your policies and procedures. So you shouldn't charge the government, one rate for service and the general public another rate for services. Should be consistent across, all customers. You should operate within accordance to generally accepted accounting principles. You should, ensure that your costs and your activities are adequately documented. These are, again, basic requirements of a grant. Ensure that your costs are reasonable. You have to make sure that if it were your own checkbook, would you, and you had ultimate control, would a reasonable person, make that same expenditure, right? Is the type of service and cost, proper? Is it the most efficient? Are you using, fair market prices? Are you doing your analysis? Are you getting the best deal? Allocable, is a cost allocable to the project, right? Are the costs that you're charging benefiting the project? So in other words, you're not just using this to supplement other projects and activities. So is there a direct relationship to their budget, to the activity of this innovative youth project? As I mentioned earlier, kind of went through some of the direct costs and the indirect costs. Direct costs are identified, and you can specifically link that back to the project. Indirect costs are costs that benefit more than one program, but it could be allowed as long as you go through that process of determining what is your indirect cost methodology. Uniform budget template and outline. So there are a number of sections that I'm going to go through, and hopefully my screen share will work. The first part, and these are all tabs on the Excel spreadsheet. Section A is on the grant funds. Section B is the matching funds. There's a certification and a federal funds, Accountability and Transparency Act, data collection sheet, and then there's the budget worksheet and narrative. So again, as you look at this budget worksheet, it is it's massive, and it's not intended to scare anyone off. This is the template. This is kind of the initial template that we're looking at, and we're looking to update and improve this. But the key here is for you to provide us with the information to illustrate that your proposed costs are reasonable, they're necessary, and you give us enough detail. Chelsea, I'm going to try to share my screen here, and hopefully you're now seeing the spreadsheet. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, we do see that.
Okay, excellent, great. So the first tab here is a narrative summary or narrative instructions, and you'll note down here these are the tabs that you need to navigate through. So this tab, General Instructions, Section A outlines a summary of information. It includes all of the allowable budget line items. You'll note here under there are some areas that are grayed out. Those budget line items are not included or not allowed for this grant opportunity. I would point out that year 2 and year 3 are not required. You can put all of your grant funds into the year 1 column. Again, as I mentioned, we are looking to make improvements, and that is one of the improvements is I think we'll get rid of this year 2 and year 3 column in the next version of this template. So in this tab, in this Section A tab, you would include your information here under organization name. You would include your DUNS number, the notice of funding opportunity number, grant number. We will populate that if you're entered if you get into if you negotiate an agreement with you. It's important to note that this grant budget, we will work with you through the application process. This is what we'll use to evaluate your budget. But once we enter into negotiations, if you score out, we will use this as your grant budget, and incorporate this into your grant agreement. So there will be no longer a separate section for a grant budget. We will use this document as the grant budget. So this section A is actually populated by these other tabs. So you'll see that personnel will be populated by the detail here, personnel. And so you would go in and you would include that information in the worksheet. Once you include that information in the detail, it will populate in this top sheet. So you wouldn't be able to enter in any information here because it pulls it directly from these other tabs. I would point out that the budget form for the youth apprenticeship NOFO will be posted this week. The budget form that I'm using right now is just for reference purposes only, but it gives you an idea of the same template of what you'll have to work with. You'll note that for each budget line item, personnel, fringe benefits, travel, equipment, you'll note that there is an in-school and an out-of-school line. So Jennifer, when she talked about the targets for the project, noted that we're looking at youth that are between the ages of 16 and 24. And so we recognize that, or anticipate that most of the projects will focus on serving individuals that are out of school youth. But we recognize that there may be some projects that have a component of in-school youth. It's not specifically unallowed, but again, it's the focus of the project or of this NOFO that you'll be serving out-of-school youth. But we did not want to restrict. We did not want to have a hard line restriction on out-of-school youth only. Therefore, we have broken this out in the budget, and because of what the U.S. Department of Labor requires us to report, we have broken it out into an in-school youth and an out-of-school youth for every single budget line. If you don't have a in-school youth component, that's okay. You can just leave that part blank. The next section here within the budget form is where you would select your indirect cost rate, and this tab corresponds to that process that I talked about that your organization would register with the state of Illinois, right? So you go to grants.illinois.gov and your entity registered, and you made a selection around your indirect cost rate. So whatever rate method that your organization selected on that registration process, you would select that here. So if your organization has a direct federal rate, you would include that here. If you wanted to use the 10% de minimis rate, you would indicate that here. Section B includes the cash match detail of your project. You'll note that on these specific budget line item tabs, you'll see that there is an in-school, there's an in-school and an out-of-school for grant funds. There's an in-school and out-of-school for cash match, and an in-school and out-of-school for in-kind. And same thing for leveraged funds. And the difference between, we'll go through that in some of the slides, but matching funds have to meet all of the same requirements in the budget line item definition But the only difference between a matching fund and a leveraged fund is that a leveraged fund is typically other federal funds that under the federal guidelines you can't include as a straight match. So we'll go through that in a second in some additional slides. So again, this budget detail tab is your location where you can include all of the grant funds, the matching funds, and the leveraged funds. The certification tab is a place where your authorized signature as well as your fiscal officer need to sign and verify that they have reviewed the budget. Again, to verify that they understand the project as proposed. And then finally, on this form, we have the Federal Funds Accountability and Transparency Act form, where an entity just completes this information based on the organization's fiscal operation. All right. Go ahead and stop share my screen here. Go back to the presentation, hopefully. Okay. So we've gone through this. So again, the items that are grayed out are not allowed under this grant opportunity. Talked about the selection of indirect costs, matching funds. Again, that you can, they meet all of the requirements of the grant funds. Leverage funds meet all of the requirements of the grant funds, but they're paid for out of other federal funding sources. And then finally, for this presentation, it would just point out that we will, if you are awarded a grant, we do have a standard grant agreement. And once we get to that negotiation process, we definitely would want to work with you and send you the boilerplate agreement so your legal office can start kind of the pre-review of the standard templates. It includes all of these articles, kind of standard terms and condition. For those of you who have received state grant funds, you'll notice that it's very similar to previous versions, but may again be in a different format. Something that is new under the GATA is the Uniform Grant Agreement will have exhibits, and they will reference your project descriptions, deliverable milestones, and all of that will get pulled out of your project plan. Same thing with performance measures and standards, and obviously the contact information and payment information. We'll point out that our grants are typically reimbursement-based. We will provide you with technical assistance if you're awarded a grantee on how to report your costs and how to draw down the grant funds. We typically, the preference obviously is to get electronic fund transfer and to get all of that set up. Exhibit H are the specific conditions of the grant agreement, and it would point out that these conditions are developed as a response to your organization's registration process. So you may remember you went through that original process of registering your organization. Your fiscal officer went through a questionnaire so we could determine your risk, right? So part of that risk process is to identify any additional conditions that may be necessary to administer the grant, and that could mean some additional reporting or other control factors. But I would point out, because we are using federal funds, there are already a number of pretty stringent requirements, and so again, the purpose is not to knock you out of the box, but to definitely work with you so we're compliant with what we need to do to administer the federal funds. Part 2 is the grant-specific terms, so that's the Department of Commerce Economic Opportunities terms and conditions. There's a couple of standard conditions there. And then Part 3, we will be utilizing the Federal Department of Labor Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funds, and so there's some additional terms and conditions that go along with that as well. Internet resources, we've noted or encouraged you to go to the program page, IllinoisWorkNet.com, Youth NOFO. We've pointed out the GATA website, uniform guidance. Again, many of these new requirements are getting pushed through using the new federal requirements, and some good links here under the Department of Labor Apprenticeship program to provide some additional tools and background around apprenticeships. Jennifer, do you want to go ahead and take us to the home stretch here? More information on the project on the grant specific terms.
Yeah, so 16 to 24, 3 different regions. We're looking for 6 to 10 pilot projects, and again, we use the word pilot because this is new and we're seeing what works. And we're thinking that each of them will be funded between $250,000 to $350,000 each. It's actually, the funds actually are dependent on what the project is anticipating, what the outcomes and deliverables will be, and we're looking for 12 to 18 months. And I know there were questions of is there money after the 12 and 18 months, and since we're using WIOA funds, there could be, but right now we're looking for the pilot and to see what's working, what's not working, and whether we'll go forward. They've got to be in by April 17th, 5 p.m., and here's where it's an electronic submittal at grant application at IllinoisWorkNet.com. Remember to do the executive summary, technical proposal, resumes, the partnership agreements, and budget proposal. Again, all of these, it starts on page 9 of the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Gives you examples or bullet points of what's expected in each of those sections. Please put these on 8.5 by 11-inch paper when you're doing the formatting. Use 11-point type at 100% magnification, and tables should be presented in 10-point type. And please limit them to 12 pages because we only have so much time to review. But then that also means you have to be very judicious on what the outcomes, what you're proposing, things of that nature also. Is there another slide? If you have any questions, please send them to patrick.campbell@illinois.gov. He is the one that's collecting all of the questions. There's a team of us that will answer them and put them on IllinoisWorkNet.com/YouthNOFO under a Q&A section. Just that applications are subject to disclosure in response to requests received under provisions of Freedom of Information Act. We got the FOIA there. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, and then I like what John was saying. Don't let the new application process with the different requirements with GATA. Don't let that be intimidating to you because we're here to help, and we really are looking forward to some great applications.
Great. So it looks like we have another question in the chat pod, and as it relates to the out-of-school definition, so we will post so we'll utilize the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act definition of in-school and out-of-school youth on the website question page.
Yeah, I'll take note of that and do that as well.
Great. Any other questions? And Chelsea, if we could open up the phones if there's any folks with any audio questions. Okay. Not seeing anybody typing in the chat pod or hearing any questions. We'll one more call for questions. All right. Not hearing any, so with that, would want to thank you all for your time and interest this afternoon, and Chelsea, thank you for your technical assistance, and Jennifer for your expertise as well, and wish you all the best. And if you do have any additional questions, I absolutely would encourage you to contact us. Check the website frequently, and would anticipate that there will be some additional resources and information posted on the web, and there is certainly a possibility that we will have this presentation rerun in the future because our application date is April 17th, but all of that information again will be posted on the application website. So with that, I want to thank you all and have a great afternoon.